want to get started now. This is a little different for us. This is a regular council committee meeting that we normally hold in the caucus room, but based on the interest and everything going on, we've decided to hold it out here. This meeting is being televised. To give you a little update or a review of how the format's going to go, at the very beginning, we've had some good news we received last week from the finance director regarding our finances and some year-end numbers. I will ask him to go over the finance report and the status on where we are. Then at that time, we'll either go into the public comments section. Normally under committee meetings, we allow 10 minutes at the beginning of the meeting, but we're going to let everybody signed up to speak. I would just ask that respect everybody else's time when you come up. If you come up and give your name and address, that would be great. It's 7:45, as I had mentioned earlier. We have a public hearing scheduled for the reapportionment of Bethel Park. So somewhat in the middle of our meeting, I will announce that we will adjourn the committee meeting and go into the public hearing for the redistricting of Bethel Park. At that time, the municipal planner will give a general overview. There'll be time during that section for public comment and also council comment as they so choose. So it'll be a little bit different tonight than a traditional council meeting. We will not have the timer for 3 minutes for people, but like I said, when the public comments time, I'd just like you to ask to respect everybody that's here tonight that would like to speak. So at this time, I would like to turn it over to our finance director, Mark Ramito, to give an update, some information that we received last week that we weren't privy to necessarily when we passed the budget in early November. Mr. Ramito.
Thank you, Mr. Mallory. As Mr. Mallory stated, we have some good news with the year-end unaudited financials that came in. We did receive approximately $400,000 additional in earned income tax that came in after the budget was adopted. These are revenues that came in basically in November and December. Also on the revenue side, we did see deep transfer tax come under budget about $95,000. So some other items that came in above what we expected were local services tax, a workers' compensation refund, and state tax distributions. All told, the additional revenues net at about $570,000 over budget. And on the expenditure side, we also finished the year well, where we were about approximately $743,000 under budget on the expenditures. The majority of that coming from utilities, savings and fringe benefits, supplies, and tax anticipation categories. The utilities was the biggest of that, where we participate in some cooperative energy purchasing programs, and we're able to realize a net savings of about $183,000 at year end. So the two items combined actually relate to about $1.3 million total in additional fund balance that we were able to realize through some savings and additional revenues that came in the fourth quarter. I want to overview the budget process and how the budget process works to give a general understanding of how we can arrive at numbers like that. First of all, the Home Rule Charter requires that we submit a 5-year capital program to council by July 1st every year. So after that, we are required to submit a preliminary budget that encompasses all municipal funds, including the capital program, to council by September 1st. That is, that's done with information through August, which is pretty early, and generally earlier than a lot of other municipalities submit the preliminary budget. And then after the preliminary budget's issued, we do go through several meetings prior to the adoption of the budget. So the Home Rule Charter also requires council to adopt the budget by the end of November, and that's done in order to allow 30 days for the budget ordinance to take effect. Now, one of the major steps in the development of the budget is determining the amount of resources available to distribute, to allocate across the budget. And that requires staff to forecast revenues and opening balances for the year. There's a lot of challenges with forecasting, and as I stated, we're submitting a preliminary budget to council pretty early, and council is required to adopt that by November 30th. So we're really working with some incomplete information, and we're really without the benefit of having full fourth quarter information. So the numbers that I reviewed a little bit earlier, those numbers came in the fourth quarter. We did not foresee that coming in back at the end of October with respect to earned income tax. We were right on budget with earned income tax at the time the budget was passed. So earned income tax coming in higher than, much higher than anticipated was all after the budget was adopted. The forecasting is, it's not just a math problem. Forecasting revenues and opening balances is a blend of statistical and economic techniques where you have to consider variables such as employment, the regional economy, any prior year anomalies, and legislative actions that are going to affect your revenues. And the actual results of how those revenues come in, that depends on future events, and much of which is uncontrollable. We cannot control things with a lot of our major revenues. And some of the uncertainty in our revenues, such as deed transfer tax and earned income tax, these are pretty significant portions of our budget. The deed transfer tax is revenue that's generated from the sale of properties within Bethel Park. So the selling price and the selling price of any property and the number of properties that are sold within a year determines what we get in earned income tax for that year, or deed transfer tax for that year. That's not something we can control. That's not something we know what's going to happen prior to it happening. So we do our best. We analyze trends. We analyze the market conditions for deed transfer tax, and we do our best to come in on budget. With earned income tax, we're trying to project regional employment and earnings and how the economy is going to affect that. It's a very difficult thing to predict, although we do rely on a lot of historical information and trend data. But in 2012, that's become particularly difficult to project earned income tax because we have a entirely new system across the state that's being implemented for the collection and distribution of earned income tax. And it could possibly delay, it will delay a lot of the funds that we receive in earned income tax in the 2012 tax year. It could delay them up to 60 to 90 days. And that's really an unknown that not just Bethel Park is facing, but municipalities across the state are facing, and school districts. And we have to make decisions, we have to make assumptions on how we think that system is going to play out. Municipalities across the state are really going conservative with that, and there's a wide variety of interpretations and assumptions being applied to earned income tax, specifically for 2012. Another item is sales tax, sales tax is an item we receive revenue for our general fund, and that involves predicting the amount of sales, the amount of purchases, and how much money people are going to spend. And we can rely on trend information for that too, but again, we can't control that. And franchise fees, another item that's really big in our budget, that's something we can't control either. That depends on people subscribing to cable and to Verizon and Comcast, and we don't know what they're going to subscribe to, and we do our best to arrive at a good budgeted number for that. But again, that's something we cannot control. We can't compel people to subscribe to cable TV. So what we do, and as is standard in local government, is we budget methodically, but we budget conservatively. And that's a process that we in Bethel Park have employed far longer than my employment here. It goes back decades, and it's been proven to result in an adequate fund balance. It's proven to maintain a stable tax rate for the municipality, and a stable tax rate that has remained over that time one of the lowest in Allegheny County. And in fact, the 2.93 millage rate ranks 114th out of 130 municipalities in Allegheny County. That puts 16 municipalities below Bethel Park's real estate tax millage rate, and 13 of those 16 also ask you to pay separately for your garbage. So there are only 3 municipalities with a lower tax rate than Bethel Park in the county who don't ask you to pay additional for garbage. I think that's a good record, and that speaks to the the approach that we've taken as staff and staff before me being here as well has taken, and council has followed this approach for decades, and it's proven to be successful. I believe that's my explanation on the budget process.
Okay, we haven't discussed this yet, obviously, we only got this information, but one of the things noted in here, we're required to do an audit every year of our finances, which normally we're receiving in May and June. I will ask staff to have the auditor, when they come in next week, to begin reviewing the numbers. As Mark said, the numbers he shared tonight are unaudited, so we want to verify, not that we don't trust our finance director, but while the auditor's coming in, have them check the numbers, our financials, maybe at the first part of the audit process. I think I'll suggest, and then we can talk about it later in the meeting, but possibly we got to get a calendar with bigger numbers. The 27th of February would be our next committee meeting where we could really discuss and refine exactly what we want to do. 0.75 mils brings in $1.4 million. The revenues and reduced expenses that we showed tonight is about 1.3, and even I can figure that out, that the two things are very close, and we can look at some other things, and we can decide probably formally at that meeting once we receive the audited numbers. So at this time, I'd like to go to the public comment section. We have a few minutes before we get to the public hearing. We have Rosemary. If you'd like to come up and state your name and address, please.
Good evening, Rosemary Prosco, 1700 Forest View Drive, and I hate to be first. I tried to review the budget, but soon realized I do not have the expertise to review such a complex document. But I do know I like Bethel Park and its services. I live on a fixed income, and I'm not crazy about tax increases. But I do know good government costs money, and all costs go up every year. People who say no new taxes ever are not realistic, and I don't want to live in the kind of society they propose. Poorly paid workers, no services. I like, what I have. They say that only people who are against things turn out for meetings like this. So I had to come and say, if you have done your due diligence and you believe that this is necessary, I support you.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this time I'd like to go to Bob Beach.
Mark, I want you to know that $400,000, that's because my wife decided to pay our earnings.
We'll omit that from the record.
Okay, my name is Bob.
Mud.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mud.
Oh, yeah, this is going on TV. Anyway, my name is Bob Beach, better known as Mud to my wife. I live at 148 Cypress Drive, Pittsburgh, PA 15241, and yes, that is Bethel Park. I looked on the map and I'm still there. Okay. First off, I'd like to say hello to the friends on council and the council in general. I thank you for allowing me to speak. This looks a lot worse than it is. It's going to be 30 seconds or so because I'm just going to read it. I prepared it myself, so if there's any grammatical mistakes, it's my wife's fault.
You're 0 for 2 tonight.
It doesn't matter at this point. It's not your address.
Well, I've been married 46 years, and I've only been married that long is because I've been her project. She's been trying to straighten me out for that long. But anyway, I'm with a group of people who, like you, are very concerned for our community, okay? Like Rose, we know that government costs money. Good government costs money, okay? In my heart of hearts, I feel sure that this council is made up of sincere, honest people that thought long and hard about increasing the Bethel Park municipal taxes by such a huge amount. Obviously, if any of the information we found tonight regarding the finances turns out to be true, it looks like that amount may even be reduced. Okay, this is such a drastically high figure to some of us, okay, when you're looking at about 34.4% increase, okay, that it shocks some of us, okay, and has caused us to search for an alternate to this large increase. We got together as a group to search for means to reduce a large increase in our taxes. We think we have found some areas that, if accepted, could reduce or eliminate this huge tax burden on the families of Bethel Park. So we can come before you to ask that you postpone this huge increase and meet with us to discuss some of these items that you may want to use to reduce this huge tax burden. We also believe that the council knows that by gathering signatures and petitioning for postponement, we could affect the passage of this huge tax. But we really don't want to take that step if we can avoid it. Although we have been gathering up thousands of signatures already, we would like to work closely with you, maybe make some suggestions, and have you look at them in a serious way, and maybe affect how large of an increase that you're proposing. However, that if anybody wants to sign our petitions, we'd be happy to have you do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I would like to move to the public hearing for the redistricting of Bethel Park. So at this time, I'd like to call to order the public hearing of January 23rd, 2012 at 7:47 p.m. Mr. Spagnol, would you please call the roll?
Allen.
Here.
Dixon.
Here.
Gibbons.
Here.
Hammond.
Present.
Harrison.
Present.
McLean.
Here.
Mowry.
Here.
O'Brien.
Present.
Pape.
Here.
All present.
Okay, we have 9 members present. Each 10 years, every 10 years, we're required to do a redistricting of Bethel Park. The strategy we've employed, and Mr. Duke can go through what the variances are, is to have the minimal impact on the residents if we need to move people from ward to ward or district, I guess ward to ward. So at this time, I will initially turn it over to Mr. Duke to give an explanation. Then I will turn it over to the public comment section, the proponents, people would be in favor of this, the opponents, the people that would be against. Then council will have an opportunity to talk. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Duke, our municipal planner.
Thank you, Mr. Mowry. As you mentioned, tonight's public hearing is based upon the ward reapportionment plan for the municipality of Bethel Park, and it's based upon the 2010 census. The purpose of this hearing is to accept public testimony regarding the proposed changes to the ward boundaries within the municipality of Bethel Park. The proposed reapportionment consists of 5 changes to the current ward designation. This public hearing was advertised in the January 12, 2012 South edition of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Now, for the record, I do have to provide you some information so that it all makes it legal. Under the terms of the Municipal Reapportionment Act, each community having a governing body not entirely elected at large is required to examine the need to reapportion into districts once the federal census is reported. The 2010 census information has been released, and the available information indicates the need to reapportion several wards. The purpose of the reapportionment is to divide the community into districts so that each district is nearly as equal in population as possible, so that council members may equally represent the residents. Previous legal opinions indicated that the variance from the average ward size is not to be more than 5%. From the review of the released 2010 information, 4 districts fall outside this 5% range. The 2 districts that are higher than 5% are Ward 4 and Ward 9. The 2 districts that are lower are Ward 6 and Ward 8. In order to accomplish the reapportionment task, Council appointed an ad hoc committee consisting of members of Council as well as representatives from the Bethel Park Democratic and Republican committees. This committee met 3 times in public meetings on September 12th, October 17th, and November 3rd, 2011. At these meetings, several options for redistricting were discussed. At the November 3rd, 2011 meeting of the ad hoc committee, it was the consensus of the committee members to recommend 6 modifications to the existing wards. Council reviewed this information as presented by the committee at their December 5th, 2011 Planning and Zoning Committee meeting, and it was the consensus of council not to include one change for consideration. This omitted change consisted of an area going from Ward 4 to Ward 8. Therefore, tonight, what we have for consideration are 5 different changes. And there were some maps that were presented out, but for the record, I'll indicate the actual streets that are going to be proposed to be changed. Change 1 is from Ward 2 to Ward 6. It includes Mimosa Drive, Holly Hill Drive, Gardenia Drive, Jasmine Drive, Sarvis Drive, Sweet Bay Drive, and portions of Plantation Drive and King School Road East. Change number 2 from Ward 9 to Ward 2 includes Barrington Court and portions of Churchill Road, Clifton Road, Library Road. Change 3 from Ward 4 to Ward 8 includes Rosebank Drive, Lindermere Drive, Highland Circle, Liberty Street, and Center Street, and portions of Brightwood Road and Library Road. Change 4 from Ward 9 to Ward 3 includes Lorlita Drive, Diablo Drive, and Hollydale Drive, and portions of McMurray Road. And change 5 is from Ward 1 to Ward 4, and this is placing all of Allegheny County South Park into a single ward, which is Ward 4. Also note that this change does not involve the modification of ward designation for any residents and is no population affected. These changes are specifically outlined in the maps that have been made available prior to this meeting and for review, and they're also to be part of the enacting of legislation that would implement it. Action on the modifications is to be taken through the adoption of an ordinance, and the next possible date for council action on this amendment would be at the February 13th, 2012 regular meeting.
Okay, Mr. Duke, with these changes, who will notify once we adopt, if we do this at our next meeting? Will this be impact, I guess, number 1, at the April election? And number 2 is, who will notify the residents of the change?
What will end up happening is the municipality's responsibility is to send the information to the Allegheny County Bureau of Elections, and the county will then be the ones designating where people will vote. So any notification is not on the municipality, but it's on the county at this point.
Okay. Once we submit the data, I will assure everybody that we will announce at the council meeting when the changes will be made and how you will be notified. Okay, at this time I'd like to open the floor up for public comment. Are there any proponents that people would be in favor of making these changes? Okay, if you could come up to the microphone and state your name and address, and just don't say anything bad about your wife.
Okay. Oh, wait. You took out that's part of my speech. I'm all in. Oh, my name is Robert Beach, Bob Beach, 148 Cypress Drive, Pittsburgh, PA 15241. I see nothing wrong with the changes, and I support them fully.
Thank you very much. Are there any other proponents people would be in favor? Hearing none, are there any opponents, people that would be against making these changes? Hearing none, is there any discussion from council? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor? Aye. The public hearing is adjourned, and this new map will be placed on our February 13th agenda for council to adopt. And like I said, once we submit the information, we'll make sure that we notify the residents through our public meetings on when they'll be implemented. Okay, at this time I'd like to go back to the public comment section. We have, the next person is Bev Turner.
Mr. Chairman,
Mayor.
before our next speaker comes up, with some folks standing in the back, we have about 8, 9 chairs up front if you wish to come up and sit up here. Okay,
We don't
that's
back.
it.
Okay, Bev Turner.
This one?
Yes.
I'm opposed to the increase of taxes for various reasons.
Good catch.
First off, I think can't hear.
If you can maybe try to speak a little louder, it should be turned on.
Hello, is it on?
You mean I messed that up?
Thank you. I'm against the increase. For one reason is because I think there could be some more due diligence done. Of course, I know you've been working hard. This one's not on either. But like, is a $40,000 vehicle better than a $30,000? Do we need that much? Is a $2,400 paper shredder necessary? I mean, there's a lot of little things. I know that you cut the window cleaning down a lot. And other than a lot of the other things, the proposed $180 a year private garbage collection, I think that's a scare tactic by maybe some people, maybe not. What I think should be done with the garbage is people that have like 9, 10, 11 cans shouldn't be allowed to do that. If they want to pay extra, fine. And that's been happening. As far as Millennium lighting, up until this year, those lights have been on in the evenings, even in the snow. There are many times I had to call over to the police station and ask them to be turned off. Sometimes they were on all night. I can't afford to run my lights on all night. And there's a lot of other things that need to be done. Also, besides that, I think the harassment of people who are collecting signatures should cease. People should be grown up enough when they see people or trying to get signatures, don't make comments. If you're not in agreement, okay, just walk past. There's been people from, I don't know if it's council, but there's officials that have made comments. There's people in administration that have walked past people that have been collecting signatures. You know, whether for it or against it, be decent, be grown up, be an adult, and don't harass people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Joe Consolmagno.
Joe Consolmagno, 5565 Fair Drive. Excuse me. I came here tonight to thank council, to thank Bill Spagno, Judy Miller, and the rest of the staff for the excellent job that you people have done representing Bethel Park, excuse me, for so many years. I moved into Bethel Park 27 years ago, and many of your faces are still on council, which shows me that the people trust you, they respect you, and you represent them in a dignified manner. You've been through more budget processes than probably anyone in this room combined, you people on council. You know the municipality better than anyone sitting in this room. Bill, you've probably been through more budgets and know this municipality better than anyone. Your face is so familiar up here. And it's because the people have elected you year after year. Jim McLean and Lori, you guys have done an excellent job too. At the last meeting, your presentation on the budget was excellent. And Mark, your comments about having salt on our streets for our children to get to school is important. It's important to me because I leave my house at 5:30 in the morning, and I want to be able to get to work in the morning. Continue to do what you've done in the past. Continue to do what you're going to continue to do in the future, because the people of Bethel Park have elected you to do the job that what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. This time, Dick Kraft.
Good evening. With your indulgence, I'd like to read what I prepared at home. Nobody likes to pay more taxes. Well, maybe guys like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and Donald Trump are really reluctant to do so, but they pay them. I support the 2012 presented budget because I trust the integrity, knowledge, and commitment of Bill Spagnol and his staff. And I compliment our council as well to provide services for our over 34,000 Bethel Park residents. I've lived in Bethel Park for almost 48 years now and have heard Mr. Harrison talk about what he calls niceties, but he never tells us what they are. So I brought a short list here of things that I myself will call niceties. There's been some suggestions made of canceling the Memorial Day Parade. Will it also cancel our opening day ceremony out here in the plaza, where we honor and recognize military veterans, or of the closing ceremony at Bethel Cemetery? Will we pull the plug and no longer provide street lighting? As we meet here tonight, Police Officer Tom Rigatti is having a meeting with our Crime Watch volunteers at the community center. Without street lighting, it will be more difficult for the Crime Watch people and all of us to keep vigilant for those who would break into our cars or homes under the shroud of darkness. Will our community today be eliminated? Our community day really enjoys and turns out for the special day. Soccer moms, fraternal groups, PTOs, churches, and others are in stands to sell food or fundraisers or to provide information about what they do in the community. Cutting back on the use of the community center has also been rumored. To me, this is a no-brainer. Many citizens, including myself, saw the need for such a facility back in 1998, and Council approved the funding without a tax increase. Mr. Harrison did not approve, and in fact bought a brick, reading in protest. The brick can still be found in the wall at the community center. That's all I have to say. I'll sit down and I'll listen to the petitioners tell us how they plan to cut the budget and save us $1,300,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kraft. This time, Dino Bello.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity of being able to talk to you for a few minutes. I've been out getting petitions, getting names, and I've got them from every kind of different types of people. I've got them from seniors who are on very limited budgets, and I've got them from young couples with young kids that are stretched to the limit. And it's very, very, very sad. I've had some people tell me point blank, I hate to sell my house, but I might not have a choice. And that's pretty sad. Honest to God, it is. It's pretty darn sad. But here's one of the things that we haven't thought about. And someone told me this when I was out getting some names today. He says, Mr. Bello, when they go with this tax increase, do they pick up the garbage for these commercial places? You know, I don't know if you do or not. I mean, you guys can tell me that. I didn't think you do. Some of these condominium places, I think you started picking up the garbage just recently. But do you plow the streets in those condominium places? When you raise the taxes up, you're getting that money. It's like a windfall. So there's a lot of free money coming out through there. And the saddest thing is to have those people there with tears in their eyes and say, Mr. Bello, $100 don't seem like much to a lot of people. It's a lot of money to me. I'm living on Social Security, that's it. And I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. This lady was crying. This was today. And I said, ma'am, be calm. I says, some of these guys on council are compassionate. I'm sure they'll think about this, but these seniors are stretched to the limit. They're stretched to the limit. And these young marrieds are strapped to the limit. And when you're talking about a 35% increase, regardless of what it is, it's a lot of money. And they said, well, gee whiz, you know, does this affect the school taxes too? I says, here's the big thing you got to watch out for. It's going to get by this year here. I think Judge Weddick said that he was going to go by that 202 assessment, but he's not going to go to the 211 assessment for a year, so he's giving him some time in through there. If what happens to Bethel, which will happen, it's realistically that's going to happen to Bethel. It's happening to Mount Oliver and Pittsburgh right now. Some of these people are getting whacked with 200, 300, 400, 500, 800% increase. Wait till they reassess you next year and this thing is gone, and these people get reassessed up to here. Then they're going to come back to you and say, where were those people when they didn't think ahead to the reassessment that we're going to get hit with eventually? You know darn well they are. There's no way you can stop it. Like we're only going to solve half the crimes. Come on. Get realistic. You're only going to salt half the streets. Get realistic. Get realistic. If you see those people cry when they sign that petition, you'll know what I mean. Thank you.
Ray Carish.
Brad Carriage, 1160 Clifton Road. I've been here 45 years, and this has been years since I've been in this council chamber. I'm not here to bust anybody's chops. I understand the situation you guys are in. I've been there. But the situation at hand is some of the things you're saying in here is nothing but a scare tactic. That's why I'm here tonight. I'm not here to say you have a tax that you have to probably put on us. If you do, do it. But don't go scaring the people that this is you're not going to do. Plowing the roads, you get $600 and some thousand liquid fuel tax. Where does that money go? I'm asking a question to...
If you want to make your comments, then we can respond.
And again, the bottom line is you do get a certain amount of money back from the state to do the roads, do the police protection. Also, you get money back for the police into their funds. Now, this money must go into the general fund. I understand that. But the bottom line is, don't go telling the people that you're not going to plow their streets because you should, because that's a safety factor, and you get money that is only allowed to be spent on the roads, and that's the idea of a liquid fuel tax. But the bottom line is, if you're going to have the extra money you're going to have here, are you going to have another meeting on this, or are you going to do some reevaluation? If so, I'll just back off right now, and then we'll go from there. And are you going to have another meeting?
Yeah, the February 27th meeting is when we'll discuss. Hopefully by that time we'll have audited numbers, yes.
Well, at this point, I just thank you for your time and everything else. Like I said, I don't envy your job. That's a fact.
Thank you very much. Steve Bronco.
Good evening. Steve Bronco, 5962 Irishtown Road, Bethel Park. I had a prepared speech for you. I decided not to use it. I don't want to waste any more of your time. I think the folks who have come up and spoke concerning this tax initiative have made a valid point. We need to look at everything. And I think it's wonderful that we got this influx of cash. But we also need to accept the fact that we can still do more cost cutting. I've had a chance to review the budget. I know that Mr. Beach said he'd like you guys to meet with us. And I'm calling you out on that too. I'd love for you guys to sit down and hear what we have to say. I mean, there are things in that budget that can be cut. We all know that. I'm saying it's non-essential items. That's what we're all saying, non-essential items. No street plowing or anything else, okay? We're talking non-essential items. The expenses of, say for example, $70,000 to repave Miners Field. I've spent many summers up there. I've also talked to a lot of people who are in the Bethel Park Girls Softball Association and have broached that topic with them, and they said, Steve, there's nothing wrong with it. And I agree. I agree. But that's just one example, and I have more. But like I said, you know, sit down with us, talk to us. You know, we have some ideas we'd like to blow by you, and I think it'd be a valid point. Okay, that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Ron Werkmeister.
Okay, you guys stay at Ron Workmeister, 4750 Robert Drive. Being near the end of all the speeches, it sort of dilutes what I need to say here. But first, I want to say you all have my, I guess, it's sympathy, because I know this is a time when not any of us would like to be up there. We're glad we're over here to have to deal with the budget. But like you guys were asking for, and like the committees were coming around asking for signatures, you want input on where we think we can have some kind of cuts or ways of getting extra money, things like that. That's what I'm trying to do here. But also I want to point out before I start with that, to support some of the things, like one is like my son and even us, you know, where I worked, we had a period where, you know, things were tight and we had to freeze our income, our wages. And I see, just through the grapevine here, there was some kind of contract for Bethel Park that ended up giving the workers like a 2% raise or something like that. If that's the case, it seems a little weird that, you know, if we're tight, there should be some provisions in the contract. I don't care how, you know, what the unions have to say, but tough crap. When you know you have to say, this is a tight year, when that next year you can be rewarded differently. And that's something that I have here for an idea. If you need some income, maybe people can prepay their tax for next year and get a discount based on whatever. You can base it on the fact of if we are going to have a lucrative year next year, then we get a big discount and we don't have to pay as much. Or, you know, if it's going to be flat again, well, we just took our gamble. We don't lose anything, but we're helping the community out by paying in advance like you do with property tax and things like that. The reassessment, we don't want to trivialize it. I do want to bring that up again because that 5% windfall that we have a limit on is going to affect us. So almost guaranteed, we're all going to, a lot of us are going to see an increase because that's the way it always ends up being. And so it's whatever the percent increase is going to be here is going to be a 5% tacked on in addition to that for whoever. And the fixed income people and all that, I do sympathize. I'm not, thank God, but nonetheless there are a lot of people that are concerned like that. One of the big items that you covered, Mark, was the energy issue. I was thinking like we had redone our utilities and we saved some big bucks. Looking at the budget, I got some copies of the budget. I was trying to look through it, but I can't do it. You guys are the ones that know more about what these numbers mean. So I can't intelligently comment about, well, this particular budget item should be reduced or whatever. But the fact was I couldn't see anything about this energy reduction, but you mentioned that, so that's good. Also, there's articles like showing the borough, like in West Mifflin, they had to have 12 furloughs because their budget was, like ours, was a lot less. So it's showing that communities are doing their job, and I believe from my heart, you guys are doing your job. You're trying to find ways of cutting, but there's going to be areas where you don't want to say it because you need us to go and tell you, hey, here, cut it, you got our permission. One area of no permission is, like was mentioned, the garbage pickup. That seems to be an area that's going to cause a lot of grief. Let's see, there's a few other things here, but basically they were covered. So my point is, I'm glad to see that there is some extra money, which sort of leads me to the question, like we have this home rule charter that has to be done by October, but here some big things come out a month or two later, which means that that makes it difficult for you guys, I think, to say, well, how can you come up with a budget in September and have it approved by October and then find out 2 months later, whatever's going to happen. So I don't know, somehow we should set up some things to make things a little more logical or, whatever, stable, So community, Bethel Park, it's great. That's why we live here, so thank you.
Thank you very much. The last person signed up to speak is Carol.
Good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor. My name is Carol Hanley. I live in Bethel Park. I've lived here for 41 years. I live at 5697 Willow Terrace Drive. I'm limping today because I was collecting signatures yesterday and I slipped on the ice, fell on my artificial knee, hit my bottom, and cracked my head. So I am committed to what I have to say. This is a prepared speech. I'll read it as quickly as possible. I'm here tonight to talk about the 2012 budget. If anyone would like to take the time to do a detailed line-by-line review of the 2012 municipal budget, along with a comparison to the municipal budgets from the past 5 or 10 years, they will discover a consistent pattern and a troubling trend. The revenues are consistently understated in many of the revenue categories, and the expenses are consistently overstated in many of the expense categories. The non-union personnel salaries and benefits are very generous and always increasing, whether it is in good times or bad. Everyone knows that the economy has been doing poorly for some time. Many residents are either on a fixed income, working several jobs, underemployed, unemployed, not getting a raise, and being required to pay more for their health insurance. I believe you will be surprised and hopefully concerned to learn that the most recent Bethel Park Comprehensive Plan estimates that more than 10% of our senior citizens 65 years and older are living below the poverty level. Many people may also be surprised to learn that if the 2012 property tax increase of 34.4% is allowed to stand, Bethel Park municipal property taxes will have increased a total of over 51% since 2008. There is very little creativity in the Bethel Park municipal budget process. It is all the same old, same old. Another year, you need more money. If there isn't enough, raise the taxes. There is a growing swell of awareness by the citizens of Bethel Park. We are awake, we are informed, and we are not pleased. The response to the 34.4% property tax increase is astonishment and anger. Using these scare tactics to your fellow citizens, I don't know who put it together, but this is nothing but scare tactics, and it's not right. These trends and practices must stop. You, council members, are entrusted with the precious resources of our property tax dollars. Please, we ask you to use these resources wisely. Thank you.
If we want to get into the agenda, I'll just respond to a couple of comments that were made as far as some information. We do receive liquid fuel tax. We have about $650,000. There's a multitude of things that we can use that for. I believe it's roads. We could use it for the plowing and equipment, things and paving, things like that. Just as a comparison, I don't want to be argumentative, but we budget $900,000 in the road program for paving next year. So there is money that comes in. That's specifically what it's for. I believe we're budgeting it to be flat. No uncertain order, the issue with the lights at Millennium Park. I appreciate you, Bev, calling the police and letting them know. I had a call from a resident in September that had drove by Millennium and the lights were on. As I checked with the police chief, the way the process works for us is the Sports Coalition assigns the fields to sports groups. And that calendar is given to the dispatchers, and all the dispatch, or the people downstairs at our dispatch center, the ones that turn the lights on and off. That particular night, when you drive by, you couldn't see there was people on there, but Bethel Park Junior Football was up there. Can there be mistakes made? Yes, there can, and I would encourage anybody, if you see lights on, to call, and there's nobody there, to call the police dispatch. Garbage collection, we do not collect for condominiums, nor do we collect for any commercial. That is all residential. We don't plow streets for condominium associations. If the association is built, and I don't believe we have any, if their roads are built to municipal standards when the plan is developed, we then take them over once it's completed, but many of them do not have their streets built to municipal standards, so we do not plow any, I believe, any of the condominium associations. I think that's all. I might have missed a few things. I will talk about real briefly about how we do project. In theory, you know, I've been on here 16 years. We've pretty much followed the same plan. I think a lot of times we probably $200,000-$300,000 we may see extra than what we anticipated. In many years, it doesn't make a difference when we're not having a tax increase. It's not that we go out and spend it. It's in the reserves, and we try to do it for next year. I would like to say that a lot of the cuts that we made in 2011, these are the fruits of our labor. I think some of them are. Could we have done a better job? Yes, we could. I think when we talked about, when we adopted this budget, that is a work in progress, and we're going to continue to work. And there's a lot of projects, a lot of things that came up last year that we had to say no to. We're going to continue that process. If we want to spend additional monies, it's not just take it out of the reserves. Where do we need to reduce? We started an ID program last year for the community center. We had an issue with a number of residents concerned about out-of-town people being in our community center at night, and our kids or our people not having a chance to play. I think Council was proactive. We probably spent in the neighborhood of $5,000 to implement an ID card system. Bottom line is, I believe we collected in revenues in excess of $17,000, far beyond what we anticipated. This wasn't set up as a revenue generator. It was really set up to protect the time so our residents can use the community center. So we do look at things. We're not perfect. I think somebody brought up, Ron might have brought up about the budget. We're required by the Home Rule Charter, because we do it by ordinance, has to be passed 30 days prior to the end of the year. You know, that's something maybe we can look at down the road. Many towns just have to pass their budget, and it's based on the way the laws are written. They can do it on December 28th or 29th. That way you'll have an extra 2 months worth of information you can do, and that's definitely something we can look at. Okay, is there any other discussion? Mr. Harrison.
I'd like to suggest that the people ought to decide who to put their faith and trust in. We have a mayor and council members up here that participate in irresponsible fear tactics. They harassed the people signing the petition. Council members did it. And the key point that I want to make to the petition committee is that the next meeting, action meeting, when we can vote at this council, is February the 13th, and the petitions have to be submitted prior to that. So I'm just telling you, don't let up on continuing the petition campaign, because they were suggested you talk to council. Everybody has insurance. Your insurance policy is going to be having enough signatures and submitting them. And then if council want to talk, fine. If they don't want to talk, they have to live with the Home Rule Charter. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion from council? Okay, hearing none, I would suggest to let everybody know that we will be looking at audited numbers on the meeting of February 27th. And at that time, we can address the situation if there's no major changes. Obviously, we announced $1.3 million. 1.4 million is what the increase was. So we'll probably decide at that meeting for sure what action we're going to take.
Mr. President?
Mr. McLean.
One comment, yes. I'd just like to mention two things. I know there's a lot more that we're going to have to talk about as we look at the impact of the information that we were just given. But that has convinced me, after having been through this process twice, that we do need to look at some way of moving the timing on the budget process. We really do need to get this to where we can have as timely and as current information as possible. And I say that in part because maybe in the end there's a silver lining to this process if in fact people do come forward with ideas that we can adopt and incorporate to actually reduce the budget and to take some things out that can be removed. But that said, I'd hate to think that everybody had to go through this if it turns out that if we knew then what we knew now, we might not have had to go through this. But nonetheless, I think it remains our job here on council to do the right thing and to take into account the information that we have and move forward. There's one other item I wanted to mention, which is, as I understand it, some of the additional revenue we received this year came from the fact that there was a collection of delinquent earned income tax, meaning earned income tax that folks owed from years prior to this past year. And it's a good thing we collected that. And obviously you can't budget for it because you don't know whether you're going to get that money or not. But Mr. Romito mentioned Act 32. What Act 32 means, for those of you who don't know, is now your local income tax is going to be collected directly out of your paycheck, meaning it's not going to be a self-reporting system. I think that may provide us with an opportunity to actually increase our collections of delinquent earned income tax. Bottom line is we're going to know about more folks who haven't been self-reporting, and so we'll be aware of them. But one thing I think that staff can look into, and this is hopefully appreciated as maybe somebody thinking outside the box and trying to be creative, is whether it makes sense to look into an amnesty program for the collection of those past delinquent earned income tax. We have no way of knowing if people haven't reported what it is, but and going out and finding them and collecting the money is a process that requires a lot of expense on our part. But there may be some virtue to having an amnesty program with respect to delinquent earned income tax as a way of getting that money in the door. I know other governments have done it and they've done it successfully. I'm just suggesting that maybe it's something that we should look into and see if it's something that could get some additional revenue in the door. Thank you, Mr. President.
If it's okay with council, that's a great suggestion, Mr. McLean, that we'll ask our staff to look into that. It may take a few months because we're in the process of collecting records from Jordan, from our previous tax collector. So if you could look into that, maybe at our April meeting, give us an idea what the collection, potential collection may be, and maybe recommend or suggest a process that we employ to do this. I know, as Mr. McLean said, the state did it a few years ago and was extremely successful. I think with technology today, we have a much better system and maybe tracking people down for money that's owed. So. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, we will move forward with that on maybe our April or our agenda, or as soon as you can, Mr. Romito. Okay, we're going to go into the rest of our items for the committee meeting. Does council want to remain on the floor or return to the caucus room? Stay here.
Stay here.
Okay, let's stay here. Let's go back to planning and zoning and Mr. Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Mowry. We have one item on the agenda for planning and zoning, and that is just to set the public hearing date for the modification to the airport hazard overlay district. I think we were talking about doing that on the 27th here.
That's correct.
Yeah. Does anybody have a problem with the 27th? Everybody good with that?
Could you ask maybe Mr. Duke to give a brief explanation of that? I mean, not everybody has a copy of our agenda. This will give you, this is how our normal committee meetings would operate when we meet in the caucus room.
Okay.
The information provided. So, Mr. Duke, could you give a quick overview?
Yes. Back last fall, we were notified by the Allegheny County Airport Authority plus the PennDOT, who oversees a lot of the transportation issues associated with airport travel, that they're redoing all the ordinances within Allegheny County, or encouraging all communities within Allegheny County to take a look at their overlay ordinance as it relates to approach to the airports. They found that they're all inconsistent, and also that they don't comply with current FAA requirements for regulating the height of structures as it handles for approaches. Bethel Park, along with Mount Lebanon, South Park, Upper St. Clair, are all within the approach pattern for the Allegheny County Airport, and they've asked us to modify our current ordinance to basically put in requirements that if a large tower or a large structure comes in, that they first get FAA approval to before they actually get permits to start construction. So as being a zoning ordinance change, it must go through the process of getting reviewed by the Planning Commission, which it has done, and then it has to go to a public hearing, and then after that it goes to being adopted in a change according to the code.
Mr. Dixon?
That's where it's
I have a question for Jerry.
Yep.
Do we know if the proposed doesn't comply now?
No, nothing complies now. We're pretty far out from the airport itself.
Yeah, we don't have any 1,600 feet or higher.
And that's pretty much where we'd have to be. We'd have to get a 1,600-foot tower to basically.
I didn't think so. So I just want to hoping to really answer the question.
In some ways, it's sort of a perfunctory thing because if we ever get a 1,600-foot tower, we're going to have a lot of other issues. But that's.
I don't think so.
But that's the nature of of what the county would like.
Should know that. That's the issue.
Yeah, this is required by the FAA that we
Well, yeah, actually, in talk about the state had gotten a fund from the feds in order to pay for 80% of our costs, out-of-pocket costs, to implement this ordinance. They don't pay for our time, but they'll pay for the court reporter, the solicitor's review, and any advertising. So we're going to get the majority of our money back.
They won't pay for our costs?
Nor mine. So.
And the Planning Commission has been reviewing this and has passed it along to council for review as well.
So we'll set a public hearing for the 27th, 7:45. Okay, is there any other additional items from council?
The only other additional item, Mr. Mowry, was the annual report, which the Planning Commission approved and passed on to council. Everybody should have a copy of that. No action needed done on that, just for your review.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, can we turn to health, safety, and welfare, and Mr. McLean?
Thank you, Mr. President. One item we have under health, safety, and welfare deals with the disposition of certain records. Chief Mackey, on behalf of the police department, has requested that council address and adopt a resolution so that we can comply with the schedule for disposing of records that are no longer necessary to be maintained by the municipality. There are various time periods that this information is retained, and then when the time period has passed, we dispose of them. Chief Mackey, do you need to address this? Okay. A list of the documents and the time periods covered, as well as the resolution, has been provided. I think we just need to put this on the agenda so we can adopt the resolution.
Is everybody okay? Okay, we'll place that on the agenda. Are there any additional items for health, safety, and welfare? Hearing none, can we turn to Public Works and Maintenance and Mr. O'Brien?
Thank you, Mr. Mowry. First item tonight is the front loader high lift purchase. We all have the attachment. Mr. Segrimus, would you give us a brief overview of what we're considering putting on the agenda?
Well, the front loader is our heavy lift machine. It's used for loading salt in the trucks when we're making salt runs. It's used for stacking, milling, and pushing debris off the roads. If there's bad weather and a tree comes down, we use the high lift for that. So it's a one-of-a-kind essential piece of equipment. The new high lift, we're purchasing that under the CoStar's program, which is a state purchasing program. Essentially, a new high lift runs $119,000, but we're able to secure a trade-in of $55,000. So the net effect is that this one-of-a-kind piece of equipment is going to cost us $64,500, which is a very good price for this type of heavy equipment. The current high lift that we have, we've been nursing it along. It's had a lot of problems to the rear axle, to the brake assemblies. We've had to put a lot of money into it over the last 3 years. Frankly, an extensive amount of money. When we're looking at replacing pieces of equipment, we look at the age, we look at the mileage, and we also look at its maintenance track record and what kind of condition it's in, and we're at the point now where we need to replace this piece of equipment.
Mr. Allen?
Bob, is this something that, I know this is under the state contract, but is
Right.
this something that SHACOG would get
No.
into? Or
No.
Okay.
SHACOG gets into smaller vehicles, smaller pieces of equipment, but this type of larger equipment, backhoes, high lifts, that type of thing, we purchase that through the state program.
Mr. McClain?
Quick question. How long do you expect the vehicle to last? Do you think our use?
Normally, with most of our equipment, we've got kind of a tiered use of the equipment. Salt trucks, for instance, normally we try to get 10 years use out of a salt truck. They're expensive. We find that at the 10-year point, we start putting a lot of maintenance into them. They become less reliable. And with salt trucks, you really can't afford the time, if there's a maintenance problem, to pull it off of a snow run and repair the thing. So we have to have a very good high reliability with our salt truck. So we try to get 10 years use out of a salt truck. Historically, we've been getting very good either resale value or trade-ins from our salt trucks. Just this last year, we were able to get $20,000 for 2 salt trucks. Now, a new salt truck, those run about $125,000 with all the equipment, and there's a lot of equipment that goes with it: the plows, the auger, the spinner, all the snow plow equipment that you would have with a salt truck. But generally, we try to have 10 years. The smaller vehicles that we have, what we do is we'll keep them for 3 or 4 years. For instance, the police vehicles, 3 or 4 years in police service. And what happens with a police vehicle is it puts a lot of mileage on the vehicle. They're on constant patrols, but at that 3-year point, then the police department, they have them reassigned to municipal staff. So you'll see many staff members that'll go out on building inspection, or perhaps the recreation department. You'll see them driving older police vehicles that have a lot of mileage on them. They're relatively younger vehicles, but they might have 80 or 90,000 miles, and then we'll put another 3 or 4 years worth of service on those, and then finally we'll either dispose of them through an auto auction, or sometimes we'll offer those for sale. It depends on how much residual value we have with them. But we generally put have a lot of years on the vehicles and a lot of mileage, and that's essentially the process that we use.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Murray.
Okay, this current front loader, what is its primary use? Is it for snow or
for the high lift?
Salt? Yes.
Yeah, the main use is to load the salt trucks with salt. I mean, that's the primary use, but it's also used if we have bad storms and there's trees that are blown down on the roads, then the high lift is dispatched to push those trees off of the road. It's used for stacking, milling. It's used as a heavy material hauler, and it has the reach capability. So it's a very large piece of equipment.
Yeah, I read here it's a 2004, so it's 8 years old, and we've put roughly $22,000 in it in the last 3 years.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ryan.
Any other counsel? Mr. Segrimus, what would it cost if we had that machine down to rent one? Because we have to have a backup plan if that machine is. I know we've had some difficulties over the last year with that.
Yeah, actually, in 2009, during the snow season, the machine went down, and we had to rent a replacement. And the current cost for a rental for this type of piece of equipment is $5,700 a month. Plus, there's a $500 delivery charge because it got to be low buoyed down, and then $500 to return it up north to the Groff, that's the dealer. So it's very expensive if you have to use a rental vehicle for a month. Very, very expensive.
Robert, what's the warranty on this new piece of equipment?
4 years.
4 years. Okay. Any other comments from council? Do we want to put this on the agenda?
Yeah, we'll start with Lori.
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Jack?
Yep.
Myself, Tim, yes. So it will be placed on the agenda at our next meeting, which is the 13th.
Thank you, Mr. Segrimus. Next item on Public Works and Maintenance is a sewer blanket construction contract. It's a bid tabulation. This is something that, I don't know, it's about 10 years ago. Bob, why don't you give us a little bit of history on this and why this is about and why did we come about this, or maybe Mike wants to give it. Whatever you choose.
I'll just kind of quickly go through this. This is essentially a time and material contract that we've had in place probably for close to 20 years now. It's been a long period of time. Been a number of different contractors on there, but in essence, this contract solicits a contractor who will work on projects as they arise for us. It enables us to immediately react to sewer problems. If we have major or minor construction spot repairs on a sewer project, then we're able to have a contractor who's already been bid, he's already been approved. Instead of having to go through an extensive bid process, we can activate this individual and then they can get in there with heavy equipment to make those sewer repairs. So if there's a blockage or a collapse in a line, something along those lines, or as we're doing the extensive closed-circuit televising that we do, virtually every day, every working day here within Bethel Park, you'll see camera teams that are out there, and we televise those sewer lines and look for potential problems. If we run into problems like that requires a repair, then we have this contractor with heavy equipment that can get in there and affect those repairs. So, we have our public works people that are the immediate reactors. If there is a sewer blockage, we have a flusher truck. They can clean the lines. They can, set up some pumps. They can make minor repairs. But when you get into major construction, then you need a contractor with heavy equipment. And by having this contract in place with time and material provisions, then we simply get that contractor in there and then he takes care of it very, very quickly. So that's in essence what this contract is all about.
And how long is it good for, Robert?
This is a 3-year contract.
3-year contract. And the numbers in this contract don't change over the course of 3 years.
Say it again?
The costs. This is a 3-year contract and they're in place for 3 years.
Right.
Okay. If anybody have any problem putting this on the agenda?
No, we'll start with Lori.
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Jack?
Yep.
And myself, yes. Paul, yes. Okay, that will be placed on the agenda. Thank you.
There are no other items under Public Works and Maintenance. Does anyone have any other things they wish to discuss? There are none, Mr. Murray.
Okay, if we can follow, the last agenda is General Policy and Finance, and Mr. Hannon is the chair. Mr. Hannon.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. The first item is basically a follow-up to something that's it falls under the category of the unforeseen consequences of certain things. Deals with the idea that, as Mr. McLean alluded to, that we need to do something to move the budget around on a calendar basis to make it work for us on the general fund stuff. But the other thing is that our ability to implement a tax rate and have the tax rate stand affects our credit rating. And when we go to borrow money, or our sewer authority goes to borrow money with our endorsement or our backing, the credit rating looks at us. Credit raters look at us. The bond companies, the insured issuers, those types of people that affect the total cost to the ratepayers, which affect the sewer rates. If you can get funding at all, if you can get financing at all. So one of the ideas that we could look at is to take the rate control process out of council's hands totally and convert the authority into what's referred to as an operating authority. Let them fix the rates, let them run the sewer system, let them operate the sewer system. They float the bonds, they pass the rates, they guarantee the bonds with the rates they put in place. There's no backing from council. They're on their own, more or less. That way, they are not subject to any kind of future action by anyone like the action that we're experiencing now. And the point being is not because I'm against what's going on. It's the idea that we have to look out for the financial health of the town and try to get the best bang for the buck as far as when we have to go for financing, which we probably will go for within the next year or so for our sewer system. Additional bonds for requirements for the Akasan area. I mean, that process isn't just over yet. It's an ongoing process. They're talking about multitudes of projects in the sewer systems that are going to cost millions of dollars. And it's the function of being able to borrow money and have the financing of able to borrow money. And if someone can contest, if we can't guarantee those issues, we have got to find another way of borrowing the money. So the whole purpose of putting this on the agenda is to have council think about how we can look at these issues, because this is one of those unforeseen consequences of actions that need to be looked at. Thank you.
Mr. Murray.
Mr. Harrison.
Whoever's ready. My comment is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We've been living under the same type stipulations, the Home Rule Charter, for over 20 years. This is only the second time there's been a tax petition committee, and all of a sudden we're talking about the sky falling. I think it just sounds like more bureaucracy to me that we don't need. Thank you very much.
I'm not going to respond to that. Next item is the attachment under boards and commissions. Yes. Yeah, the other thing. It has come to our attention that one of our bond issues we can do an advance refunding of to gain some additional funding for the authority. And we'll have some additional information to council. Is there a favorable?
Look into it.
Have staff look into that and get back to council with that? Is there anybody that does not want to do that?
No, that's fine. Just for the public's information, the municipality guarantees bond issues for work we do at our sewage treatment plant and system. At this point in time, there's a bond out there that we could potentially refinance, maybe at a lower rate, and gain a couple $100,000 worth of revenue based on keeping the same debt service. The bond counsel we use gets back to us on a regular basis when there's opportunities like that. So what we're asking, if we can have staff look into it and proceed with that, and also notify the municipal authority, even though we're the guarantor, we're kind of in tandem with them. Yeah, it's their bonds, but we pay them. So I just notify them.
They're really ours.
We could save, I think, or we could get refunded back, and that money would historically goes back into the system, so it would be used for projects in the sewer system, and theoretically our payment rate won't change. So if everybody's okay, we'll have Bill proceed and also notify the authority.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is appointments to boards and commissions. Mr. Murray.
Yeah, I think we kind of talked about this. Because last year was an election year, we're not able to appoint or reappoint people in the fourth quarter to our boards and commissions. We've had a number of the people that have been serving on the boards that have asked to be reappointed. I would suggest we put those, if everybody agrees, on the February agenda. And then I think the municipal authority has one position open. In the Parks Department, we have, 4 people apply? We have 3 people apply?
Yeah, there's 3 open and 3 apply.
So if we could ask to put all the people that want to be reappointed on, and then maybe set up interviews on the meeting of the 13th prior to council going to the floor, that we can interview the people, and then we could potentially appoint that night and get everybody appointed.
Yeah, leave blanks in the...
And leave blanks, and we can decide, and if we can't
agenda.
come to a consensus,
We'll just
it can be
remove them from
removed.
the agenda.
Mr. Murray.
Mr.
Harrison?
I got, have we had a member of the municipal authority die. Have we advertised for that position, Mr. Spagnol?
No, we have not as of yet, although I've had communications with several people who may be interested in applying.
Okay.
If you can get us the resumes, is that okay, Don?
Yes, yeah, I just wanted to make sure. We do have one member whose term expired, so we have that action plus finding an additional member.
That's correct.
The other thing I wanted to ask about this is I seem to remember, and I tell people my memory was not very good and it's getting worse there, but in any case, I thought we agreed to provide the attendance record of these people asking for reappointment, and I didn't find that in my mail. Is my memory false, or one time we got a summary and then we didn't get another? Thank you.
Okay, can we just give an update on the attendance?
Well, we decided a few years ago that since that we did away with it.
Right.
That was about 4 years ago. We decided not to do that.
But I think, is Don looking for informational purposes?
Yeah, he's entitled to it if he wants it.
Yep. I'll just say, if I may get my second crack here, that my concern is that at one time we had stipulations that members had to attend a certain percentage of the meetings unless they had some crisis like a heart replacement, some illness. And we did away with that, and I think the facts show that the attendance is less good than it used to be. And it just seems to me that we appreciate people volunteering to serve on these boards and commissions, but it seems to me if they want to volunteer, they ought to at least plan on making most of the meetings. Thank you.
I'll just quickly comment on, not to go hash over what happened in the past, but I think some of the logic that went into that decision was the fact that there is no attendance requirement for members of council, and to hold our boards and commissions to a different standard, I think the majority felt that we didn't feel like doing that. And I can say that if we have people that we have not always appointed everybody to the next board, got reappointed, so I think we all make our evaluations of that process, so.
Yeah, I think it was only for that year, so if you wanted to get reappointed, you just showed up the last year of your appointment. You look good.
No. Okay, then if we can just place these on and then advertise and also get the attendance to everybody for the current board members. Okay, is there anything else, Mr. Hannon?
The last item is the 2012 municipal budget discussion.
We already had that.
I think we already had it, so I think we're done.
Okay, are there any additional items? Mr. Harrison.
I want to, it was alluded to tonight that we have an audit that's about to begin or has begun or whatever. I got a constituent question which I couldn't answer, and I wanted to get the answer to it. Is the arrangement we have with Meyer Dissel, is that a continuing thing, or is that one of these where we or they can decide at a certain time not to? You know, I'm asking, we've had them for a long time, and I don't personally have any problems with them, but I was asked the question, what's the arrangement in terms of is it a continuum until we take an action, or they take an action, or just what's the situation?
The arrangement is and with any auditing firm, it works where you get an engagement letter, which is basically a contract. I believe our contract with our current auditors, Mar Dissel, may expire after the current audit, at which point we would have to explore get a new engagement letter from them, or explore other alternatives. But it's not an automatically renewing.
So before this year is over, we'll have an agenda item to decide whether we want to advertise or we're happy with what's going on and we want to extend the contract. Is that what you're telling me?
To my knowledge, I believe it does expire.
It's a professional service. I
so
think
you
we
don't
discussed
necessarily vote on an agenda.
That we're not required to vote on as an agenda item, I believe.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for coming out this evening. Have a nice evening.
George, and this is a plan.
And I'm Mike Shaheen, also known as Bill Cosby.
BPTV is in desperate need of volunteers, new TV shows, and even your own short films.
Like on YouTube.
For example, you can send your own YouTube videos, and we will gladly put them on the air.
Right, because I just said that like 3 seconds ago.
We can show you all the tools you need to create your own TV show.
Like Photoshop, Final Cut, or After Effects.
A lot of the equipment we have at BPTV is the same equipment used by professionals in your favorite TV programming.
Shows such as Scrubs or Mythbusters.
We'll even take you step by step through the creation of your own show. Plus, you get to meet a bunch of fun people who enjoy doing the same thing, like us.
Yeah.
We really need some new material for BPTV.
Yeah.
I mean, the only people working are me and this plan.
Yeah. Wait, what?
That's right, just me and this plan.
Greg, I'm right here.
It's really hard to come up with ideas whenever we just have me and this plan here.
Greg, we're filming a video right now. I mean, we sat here for an hour writing this script out. Can the camera even see me?
Like
Hello?
I said, come to BPTV and help me and this plan make some good television. Because clearly, no one else is here.
Greg, I'm right here. Hello? Oh, come on. Hey, you ready?
Of course I am.
What are you waiting for? I was waiting for you. So we're gonna continue the hubby thing real quick. Okay, places everyone. In a minute! Do I have to do everything myself?
You can't do it all by yourself.
I have to say that... Sure I can.
No, he can't. And neither can I. So why don't you come on down to BPTV and help us make some of the great community programs you see on this station every day.
Yeah!
I mean, we can help you make your TV show ideas a reality.
It's pretty awesome.
So come on down. I mean, I am pretty good, but I'm sure I can use your help.
What's in the box?
Sports, TV shows.
What's in the box? What's in the box? Come with me. Do you want to know what's in the box? It's you.